Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to NAB 2014, and welcome to the Autodesk booth. My name is Bill, and I'm really happy to host this next presentation. It's a guest presentation with our friends from Thru in Minneapolis. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We've got Bob here, we have Derek, we have Aaron. You're probably wondering why we have 3 people for a guest demonstration. It's because we had this sort of idea of sponsoring a theme that we had around mentoring and how you grow the next generation of flame artists. And Bob and I have been friends for quite a long time, and I've seen the evolution of his company and the evolution of his team, and I thought it would be really fun to bring everybody out and kind of explain the way they work and sort of how they've grown and their success. So, Bob, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
First question I had for you is really around how you arrived at starting Thru and how you learned about Flame and when you got started with Flame.
Yeah, it started about 20 years ago. I started directing and doing nonlinear editing, and then the editing took over the directing, and then I got more post-intensive, more effects work. And about 2004, I decided I was at a point where I needed to grow the business or figure out something else. So I ponied up and bought a smoke flame combo on Tesro.
Right.
And started and learned it.
On an SGI machine?
On an SGI machine. I just took it out of the equipment room last year because I needed the room and the rack. It had the pretty lights on there. It was really nice. But so I moved along, learned that software, did a lot of work, and then the company kept growing. And about 5 years ago, Derek was interested in coming and joining us, so we split that apart to 2 flames. And Derek, you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I'll just back up a little bit and say how I started my career. I guess I started about 19 years ago now. Fresh out of college, I got a foot in the door doing working in the duplication department of a larger post house at the time back in Minneapolis. And then just quickly moved my way up. I was assisting in a linear suite at the time, which then went to non-linear. And I'd say as far as my career, I've probably been on either a smoke or flame now for the last 12 years. Like Bob said, 5 years ago, he hired me away from where I was at, and I came and started at Thru working on a smoke advanced. But then quickly found, since Bob was focusing more on the business side of things and focusing on some of the technology in our facility, my skill set needed to be improved. I had to do more and more flame type work. So I just naturally progressed to that, and now I'm on a flame premium. And then at the same time, as I'm doing that, other tasks like rotoing and this and that needed to be picked up. And so Aaron started on Flare. I'll let him say.
You actually started as an intern, right?
I did. I started working with these guys about 5 years ago, first as an intern. I was getting coffees and lunches and delivering it to their rooms. And then I kept watching what they were doing, and I loved it, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. So when I asked Bob about it, he said I had to go back to school and get a foundation for that first.
Right. He said no at first.
He said no.
No.
And I did go back to school and kind of learn the basics of the node-based compositing workflow and how everything works. And when I came back to Thru, it was about the same time that they started passing me shots to work on, and that's where things took off.
Right. So I just think it's a great story because it literally evolved naturally, right? Because you couldn't do both, right? You couldn't be the owner, operator, deal with the business side of things, bid jobs, be on site directing. You needed some more help.
You can't do it all. You need help. You need good help, and you need to find the people that have the mind that can embrace this piece of software, because it's the best piece of software I've ever used in my life. I don't know it all. I don't think I'll ever know it all. No one will ever write a manual for it, because if they did, it would go on forever. You'd never be able to read the thing. So it's having the mind that can embrace the concept, so when a problem comes up, you know how to at least start to try and fix it. And there's usually 3-4 different ways to do that.
Right.
But right now today, we have 16 employees at Thru, so we've grown. We've got offline edit, color, graphics, CG. The color we do virtually with Company 3 out of Santa Monica, New York.
So you collaborate a lot with other people?
Yes, as you'll see in our stuff a little bit later on there.
Yeah, so that's really the setup, is really just explaining the evolution, explaining the benefit of mentoring other people, growing more people in your facility to free you up to do other things, and that's going to be sort of what we highlight in some of these projects that we break down.
And I thought what was interesting was after about a year Derek was there, I go, well, do you want to be a flame artist someday? And he said no. No. And even at this point, he uses smoke shortcut keys.
Oh, absolutely.
And I go in there and I crash his machine because I'm trying to show him something. I got to go to my user.
Anyway, it sounds like a fun place to work. So with that, why don't we take a look at the drive-through show reel, and we'll take a look at that, and then we'll come back and talk about a few projects that these guys collaborated on.
Here we go.
Awesome, great reel. And I especially like how you guys show some of the before and afters and wipe things on and off. It helps us understand a lot of the invisible effects, and I think that's where we're going to start, right, Bob? We'll talk a little bit about some of the work you did on this amazing Honda spot that aired a lot. I think it's still airing with Mario Andretti.
Yeah, let's. I'll preface it just a little bit before we play it. Is that they're having a shoot, Mario driving his race car, giving a ride. It's a contest to enter at shophonda.com to have the fastest seat in the car race industry.
Sit in the back seat
Sit in the back seat going for a ride. Let me play the spot now. I was actually asked to go out on the shoot to supervise it, and when I went out there, I didn't feel like there was a lot that I needed to supervise. I'm going, yeah, do I really need to be here? But here's how the spot turned out.
Sign a waiver?
Waiver?
Two seats, one for you and one for racing legend Mario Andretti. The fastest seat in sports sweepstakes. Enter for a chance to start an IZOD IndyCar Series race at shophonda.com.
It's a great spot.
And so you know how people, when you go to a shoot, you got to set the camera up, you got to get it in position, and so then and those Indy cars, they've got to get up to speed, so they need a couple of laps to get up to speed, and then they can shoot it, and then they go, okay, we got that shot, now we got to move. And Mario liked to drive his race car. He didn't want to just sit in the pits. So he would give clients rides. He had them all lined up, getting dressed up in their suits and then getting fitted for helmets, and so in between he would just ride them around there. Well, after about the first half day, the engine blew on the car. There were two cars there, though, but the other one had a different body style, so it wasn't going to work.
No.
And then what happened, after the engine blew, we're figured out a way to make the car go, but we had to tow it with the crew minivan. And that took a little bit of time to kind of get it up to speed. So in the spot, we ended up having to do a lot of speed changes, a lot of rig removal.
You also had to take the spoiler off, right?
We had to take the spoiler off to do it. So here we go. And they ended up, they tried to cut around it as much as they could. They were working on this with an editor at The Real Thing in Santa Monica. We're in Minneapolis. We're working on effects, dream sequences, and we're kind of feeding them back and forth live to their edit room so the client could respond to it, giving them, he's grabbing a piece off our server, putting it in. So we have a real collaborative workflow with whoever we partner with in the world. As long as they have a decent internet connection, we can get our technology there, so it's like they're in the same building. But thank goodness for OpenEXRs, because Matt, our CG artist, put this together in about a half a day. We had to turn it really fast.
Can you show us the before?
The before? Yeah.
There we go.
There's the before.
All right, so the spoiler's off, and you're being towed by the minivan, so you got to do the wire removal, prep that shot, make it clean, and then put your spoiler back on.
Being towed at about 35 miles an hour.
Right, so you had to speed it up.
Anyhow, so Aaron did the tracking on that. Matt did the modeling and CG work, passed me an OpenEXR, and I comped it in real quick, showed the client, they're going, yeah, that's perfect, that'll work. But then as things changed, we had one set of color correction, then we had another set of color correction, and you know what that does to you when you're doing your stuff. So it's good that we had an OpenEXR, because we could change that very easily and make it match what we were doing. Again, the layers, we put the motion analyze in there, the motion blur, some of the shadows and stuff, and it turns out like it did, like this. Oh, let me make that full screen.
No problem.
There we go.
Right, so no one would be the wiser for that.
No.
So again, sort of an invisible effect. Now, I think there was also an issue with Mario Andretti in terms of continuity with the gloves, right? So you had an issue between takes with and without the gloves?
Right, because if you look here, there's no gloves, and the next shot he's got gloves on.
Right,
so
that's not gonna work.
The client thought that was a problem, and it is a problem.
Yeah.
And they go, this is after it has been approved, and we had hardly any time at all to put this.
So it's no problem. You just got
this.
Mario to come back on location and
bring the whole crew
bring
back.
Everybody back.
No, that didn't work that way.
Bring the cars back.
Our producer goes to me, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I'm going, well, the way I see it is we have two ways we can do this. We can model the gloves.
In 3D.
In 3D. Open the X-arm, stick them in. Should work, shouldn't be a problem. But it takes time. And I said, can Mario send his gloves up to us?
So you just called Mario, send me your gloves.
Well, we went through a few more connections, but basically, that was that afternoon. We said, can we have Mario's gloves? The next morning, they were there in FedEx. And so we had his gloves. Now, who can wear the gloves? Because I'm going to shoot this thing just like they shot Mario in our, not even a studio, it's basically our lunch area.
Right.
Our kitchen. Our kitchen at the office there. Let me get that so it fits. So I had to see who fit the gloves, and we had everyone try them on, and then the only person that fit was Derek.
Right. Again, so that was Derek's contribution.
Absolutely.
Derek did the gloves. Aaron shot it. We shot this thing on 7D, and I usually never want to key footage off of a 7D. But there's enough contrast in this, and it's pretty simple lines that we could do a luma key and pull good edges off, and it worked.
That's perfect. And then show us the result, yeah.
And there we go.
So no one would know. Again, another invisible effect.
Right.
And you pulled that one off. So I think that's kind of what we wanted to show in this first one, right? And then we can jump over to farmers, or was there any other examples from this?
Yeah.
I think
no,
the point that we wanted to make, though, was also the importance of having your on-set supervision, right? To have your flame artist on set was really helpful here, because you were able to get everything you needed to validate that you could complete that spot in the time you needed.
So it turned out that it was a good thing that I was there, because they're going, well, how are we going to do this? If we tow this, if we pull this off, what can we do? I'm going, yeah, well, we can put a new piece in. We can do this. I'm shooting HDRI maps there with my iPhone, so we can pass those back in case we need them. And so by me being there, we saved ourselves a lot of time, kept the production on track.
Right.
There was even at one point where they were running behind, and the camera car was sitting there with the DP, and I'm going, well, I can go do this. I used to shoot stuff. Okay, fine, go do it. So we went out and got some B camera stuff for them while they were trying to rig the car up, and because that took a lot of extra time to tow the car instead of running it.
Sure. Mm-hmm. And you also had the confidence, because you had mentored these guys, that they were back at the shop, still keeping production going At Drive-Thru.
Yeah.
That's great. So let's take a look at the one that you guys collaborated even more on. And Derek, maybe you want to set this up a little bit
Sure,
for us.
yeah. Like for this Honda spot, I wish I would have been a little bit more involved in it, but at the same time, I was doing another spot in the campaign, which is a little bit more compositing heavy. So this was kind of Bob's focus here, besides obviously my hands. But for the farmers, that was a little bit more indicative of the general workflow that we have going through the facility. So I guess we'll show you that, and then I can talk a little bit about how that worked.
Perfect. So Rob, if you don't mind the audio.
In the world of golf, there are two types of players. Those who play it smart and follow the rules. And those who don't. Fortunately, when a golfer steps out of line, one man is there to set them straight. Dick Fowler, P.I.
We should do a hot tub, you and I.
Don't you know that it's rude to talk during swing with backswing?
Hold on, buddy. Right. Oh, no. I knew you were going to say that.
Looks like that call was dropped.
If you want to get smarter about your insurance, talk to Farmers. If you need help on the golf course, you need Dick Fowler, P.I. We are Farmers. Bum ba dum bum 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 bum.
Any golfers out there? Anybody ever wanted to do that? Yeah. Of course. All right, so tell us about the challenges on this one, because there are some similarities, but some differences.
Absolutely, yeah. So just to kind of go back to that general workflow, there were 4 spots in this campaign, these longer format kind of pieces like this. Generally, we're working like 80% of my work is usually on like 30-second spots, but the same holds true to the workflow in that. For this one, we actually did the production as well. So we had our editor, offline editor, Nick Miller, go out to the shoot. So he was able to cut dailies and start doing rough cuts right as they were shooting. And in that, as he was doing that, though, we also had to be providing him with certain effects that we were doing within the spots. So it was kind of a circular rotation already in the beginning process with the offline edit.
And a lot of cleanup too.
Yeah.
A lot of grass cleanup.
Yep. So as I'm doing that, I'm pre-conforming to the raw files as they're coming back to me. That allows us to be all in the facility, all working at the same time on these, while the files themselves are going off to grading, to color. Company 3 was the company that graded these for us. So as I'm doing the main work, doing a lot of fixes, removing some clubhouses, doing grass fixes because it wasn't the best golf course in the world. I'm also having Aaron at the same time doing a whole bunch of rotos work for me, doing some smaller fixes as well. And then everything's getting fed back to me. I'm feeding things to Nick still when he's out on set. Once we have a locked cut, then we're doing the color. For this job, we did a virtual online session. So we actually sent out a laptop out to the clients out in California, so I could do a real-time session with them as they're watching on a color calibrated laptop out in California. Everything went great. Very smooth process with this job. I think we were actually ahead of schedule on it. Wrapping it up, I'm moving on to other projects, and then we get a call that Farmers decided that they wanted to change their logo. Not a big deal if you just slap a new logo on the end.
Yeah, change the logo. No big deal, just at the end.
Except Wardrobe did such a nice job on putting that old Farmers logo on all the caddies' aprons.
So that's the problem.
And that wasn't just the one shot. That was for 65 shots in what we saw. So that throws a monkey wrench into the whole process.
Right.
Could you go back and quickly show the roto that Aaron did on the golf cart? I thought that was actually pretty stellar. Look at that.
And
Aaron,
this is
nice work there,
beautiful,
my friend.
Thank you.
Excellent.
I'll just
So,
rip through it here.
Actually, it's a very good concept to break every element down, and it's easier to control instead of trying to do one giant mask, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great technique. Anyway, so back to the story about the logo. So how did you guys decide to tackle that one?
Bob, you want to talk to that?
Yeah, I will. Let me just load the setup in here.
Sure.
So
what the producer calls and tells you, Derek, or are you Bob, or how did that go down?
why I think it probably was told to all of us.
Right, at the
that,
same time, we're
Hey,
like, "Oh."
the logo change. Here's a company, Farmers, who I don't think they've changed this logo ever. You know, out of all the things that could go wrong after the spot's approved, the logo changed. Really?
And that's a pretty long, complicated spot. It's not a 30-second spot.
Yeah, and so we have problems. You know, I threw the shots, and I'm going, okay, what are the hardest shots we have? Throw those in here. Let's see if we can come up with a solution. Because we didn't have time to CG them all. Couldn't do that. So we picked the ones that needed to be CG'd, and there were like 3 of them. And so we got that tracked and got that going. Then the other solution was, well, how are we going to do this in 2D? So I went through and kind of figured out a couple of options on this, and one being, if I just go ahead and remove the logo like that and kind of paint the highlights and the shadows in. And so now I get a good plate that we can track on. So I mux that sucker there, pull a little Luma key off of that as well, which I'll use later. Comp the new logo in the position that we wanted it and tracked it in. So now I have the piece. But then, you know, that doesn't look very well. We got to do something to that to make it look a little bit better. And so we can go into action and throw a couple little transfer modes on there. Yeah, that's kind of it. But, you know, it's not really taking on the wrinkles so well. So then I used Matchbox. It was a new little thing out there. And then what that did is it took the Luma key I pulled, took the highlights and the darks, and warped the type to that. So I could control to taste how that type sat on that wrinkled piece of clothing. And then in the end, you know, it actually turned out pretty well. I would use the shape tracker to go ahead and track it on.
Never know.
And you never know. There was actually one shot in here, we were showing this to people because you look at it so long and you go, boy, does that look real or not? And we showed it to a couple people and they're going, well, we asked them, what's fake in here? And or is anything fake in here? And they go, yeah, Dick Fowler's badge looks fake. That was shot real. They never even picked this logo out.
That's great.
So it ended up working out pretty well for us.
So you came up with this technique, but that was for a handful of shots. You knew you had 65 to do. What did you guys do next?
What happened next is I did a couple of the hard ones, and I knew I had Aaron sitting around there. So I went and taught him, showed him what I was doing, what the thought process was, and he got started on a few of the shots, and I checked back with you. And then I left town because I had another appointment stuff I needed to go to out of town. So I left the rest of them with Aaron. And
so there I sit with.
Can we hear from Aaron?
Can you hear me? I sit with a list of 60 shots to do. And after Bob showed me the technique, I started on a couple shots and say, this is actually working. I think I can do the rest of these. So I sat there for the next couple days and went shot by shot and completed each one. And when Bob got back, he took a look at them and he said, yeah, those look pretty good.
And so you became the Jedi after that.
And what's cool about that is that technique that he taught me that we used in this shot, or this spot, I've used many times since then, and it was a great introduction to using that technique that I've been able to use many times.
That's cool, and that's how flame artists develop, right? You're building on your skill set. You're putting those building blocks together as you're introduced to new challengers. Every day is different, right?
Yep.
Every project requires a different sort of adaptation, and I think that's what you're handing down. You know, one to the next to the next.
Right, and it is. It's, you know, how do you roto? Because everything's a mat. Whatever you do, you're going to have a mat involved. You know, pull it out, put it in. How do you comp it in to make it look real? You got great tools in here. There's more than one way to do it. And what's great about Aaron is Derek and I have been doing this so long that we watch some of the new tutorials and stuff, but we were busy working on the box. Aaron watches them all. And so I'll go into his room, and he'll do something. I'm going, where did that menu come from? I didn't know about that. Well, I watched the tutorial.
So he's teaching you guys some new tricks.
He's teaching us, and I think one of the good jokes in our place is Derek and I don't roto anymore. Aaron does it all. And I had him out on a shoot last summer, and it was, okay, do we green screen this or roto it? And I go, Aaron, you're going to have to make the decision on this. This is what you're up against if we green screen it.
Right.
We rotoed it.
You rotoed it. You're the
sometimes
master.
it's easier to roto than it is to key it and do all the fixes to that you might need to do.
That's great. That's great to hear, and it's great that you actually have that openness to to go to him and say, what's your thought? How do you think we should tackle this?
Well, it's part of the teaching. I've been at shoots my whole life. If I can get these guys to go, I'll bring them along, because I'm not going to be able to do that forever either. They need to know how to communicate with the DPs and the directors, and to once in a while you got to kind of pull the card and say, okay, stop this whole thing because you guys are insane. Let's talk about this before you go and waste all this. And once in a while you have to do that as a set supervisor, but you got to have some confidence and know who to talk to do that without making a big mess there. You do it quietly in the background. You don't go, hey, stop everything.
No, it's true. And I think everyone, the message of this presentation really, for why we came up with it, and I was chatting with Bob about, originally we were going to just bring Derek because I knew that there was that sort of relationship there.
Right.
And Bob said, no, I really want to bring Aaron too, because, he's the next generation, right? I mean, I won't reveal your age, but you look pretty young.
Ahead.
24.
You're 24. Okay. And Derek's in his 30s, and then there's, Bob and I in our early 40s. But you get the point, right? And I can remember very specifically those milestones in my career. Where just you met somebody who gave you a shot. Actually, ironically, I have one of my friends here who's actually one of those people. Dave's here. He was a Quantel guy. He showed me all kinds of techniques back in the day, in the linear days, and that's building blocks that I use to get to the flame. So it's all about that, and I want to encourage every flame artist out there to invest in teaching somebody else the ropes about flame.
Well, and how I did this was I went a couple of years ago. I went and got a flare, and I said, I'm going to put this flare in the graphics room and see who takes to it. I knew Aaron probably would. I didn't know if anybody else would. But if I'm sitting back there, nobody wants to go touch it. It's kind of like, trying to watch the cat eat the food. The cat's not going to eat it while you're there. If you walk away, they'll kind of sneak up to it and look at it a little bit. And so I just stuck it in there. They could do anything they wanted to with it. And I just want to see people develop. If somebody else is interested in learning this, I'm up for teaching them, because this is it's a great tool. You can do amazing things with it. There's a lot of older flame artists, and we need some new blood in thinking this way too, so we can get things done better and more efficient.
Well, and you're very generous, and I like your philosophy at Drive-Thru. So with that, let's play back your reel one more time.
All right.
We'll kind of wrap it up. I want to thank these guys. Big round of applause for Bob, Derek, and Aaron for coming out from Minneapolis. Thanks a lot. And we'll be back with another presentation in just a minute.
Shake the time, T-5, and you're still looking.